Welcome to my first ever video. We're going to do blood flow today through the heart really quick. And here's a basic diagram of the heart. First, you want to know the path of deoxygenated blood through the heart. So you have three structures that are going to dump deoxygenated blood into the heart. The first is the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, and the coronary sinus. Just put CS, coronary sinus. And we will do here deoxygenated blood in blue. So first we have coming in through the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, and the coronary sinus. Those three structures will dump deoxygenated blood into the right atrium. So this is the right side of our heart. This big A right here, this is our atrium. These will be our ventricles. And then we're going to go through a structure here that has three flaps or three valves on it. So it's called the tricuspid valve. And deoxygenated blood will then go through the tricuspid valve into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, deoxygenated blood is going to go into your pulmonary semilunar valve. And then it's going to exit the heart through the pulmonary trunk. And eventually out pulmonary arteries. We always call them arteries, even though this is going to be carrying deoxygenated blood. It's going away from the heart. That's how you define an artery. So in this case, our arteries are carrying deoxygenated blood, which is the only case where that's going to happen. So this is our pulmonary trunk. And then these are our pulmonary arteries. Then that's going to come out here to the lungs. That didn't work. So it's going to come out here to the lungs. And then it's going to be oxygenated. So at the lungs, we're going to oxygenate this blood and it's going to re-enter the heart over here through veins. Anytime you have blood coming back to the heart, it's going to be called a vein. So these are your pulmonary veins. And oxygenated blood is going to be coming through the pulmonary veins from the lungs into the left atrium. From the left atrium, then we have covered kind of deep here. I'll draw it just over here, but you're going to have your bicuspid or mitral valve, and blood is going to flow from the left atrium, through the bicuspid valve into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, we're going to go through the aortic semilunar valve, the aortic semilunar valve is going to give rise to the aorta, and the aortic arch. So that's going to kind of cut out some more of our picture here, but we're going to go for it anyways. Okay, so anyway, we have coming up here our ascending aorta into our aortic arch, and coming off the aortic arch, then you're going to have three branches that are important to remember. Off the top of the arch, and then important branches. Just go like that. Okay, I think you guys get the idea. So you're going to have 3 branches that come off. Move this out of the way. The first is your brachiocephalic. The next is your left common carotid. And finally, your left subclavian vein. Subclavian artery. And immediately, right after your aortic semilunar valve, you have branches that are going to come off and actually supply the heart. Those are your coronary arteries. So you have a right and a left coronary artery. Those will be the first branches right after the aortic semilunar valve. But blood's going to go through that aortic semilunar valve up the aortic arch, ascending aorta and descending aorta. That will eventually turn into the thoracic aorta, which we'll talk about in a second. But brachiocephalic is our first branch, left common carotid, and then left subclavian. And that is really the path of blood through the heart. So let's go through it really quick. If we start over here, deoxygenated blood through the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, and the coronary sinus, step 1 for deoxygenated blood here. And then as we go through the tricuspid valve, we're going to go into the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, we go through the pulmonary semilunar valve, out the pulmonary trunk to the pulmonary arteries to the lungs. Then we come back in through the pulmonary veins, back into the heart, here's our atrium. So from the left atrium into our left ventricle through the bicuspid or mitral valve into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, we're going to go through the aortic semilunar valve, so ASV. And then we go up the ascending aorta and through these 3 different branches to all the parts of the body. And don't forget down here as well your 2 little coronary arteries that are going to help supply the actual heart with oxygenated blood. And so, for sake of time, hopefully that was a good review of blood flow in the heart. I'll do another video here in just 1 minute about the blood flow through your coronary arteries as well as your left subclavian artery. I keep saying that. And then some other structures that are important to remember, fetal remnants of the heart. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, guys.